Good morning. Welcome to AIM. First full day here, and I'm excited. I'm Matt Ruhlinger. This is
Courtney Smith. Nice to meet you guys. We're super excited to be part of this fun roundtable.
so we are. This is the podcast room. We are part of Apartments. We are Apartments on the Go. We hope you enjoy our sessions, and we'll be talking to everyone here on this panel today afterwards, so you can catch another sneak peek of the topic. Today's session is Tour Talk, enlightening the customer with virtual experiences, and we're going to turn this over to Tom Calambasa. Is that it, right?
Thank you. So I'm Tom Calambasa, the CRO and founder, co-founder of LCP360, and today with me I have Sarah Chesbro, the Senior Marketing Manager for Greystar Development Group, Dave Seiler, the Executive Vice President of Operations at Trinity Property Consultants, and Katie Mancuso, the Director of Marketing for Redwood Capital Group and Redwood Residential. So we're going to kick it off here with a question on key learning. So what key learnings can you share about from leveraging virtual tours in the last 2 years? And Sarah, I'm gonna let you take that one.
All right. We actually had a chance to catch up a little bit before this session. And, you know, I think with COVID, Greystar, we were fortunate enough to have a lot of the tools in place beforehand. But I think all of us realized that we were finally able to get approval from clients, right? That, you know, you'd been asking for years and years. But what we really discovered is it was our teams that, you know, adopting those tools and really learning how to use them. It's not just another, you know, dashboard, because that's the thing is you're talking to your on-site teams and how many dashboards are we in every day, right? And how well are we trained on them? How well are we utilizing them? And so I feel like that was the aha moment for me is, yes, we have all of this technology in place and so forth to create that incredible user experience that hopefully converts, but do the teams know about it? Are the teams using it? You know, how is that? Because we can sit here at, you know, a more of a corporate level and say, oh, the data's saying this and this and this and all of these things, but you know, at the basic level, what are we doing there? So that was my biggest takeaway just from, you know, the past 2 years in general, but with virtual tours, that was another step for me is, you know, not only the teams, but in these dashboards, am I leveraging these virtual tours in every single way possible? So for me, certain technology was in place, but what I've learned is, can I optimize these tools and make sure if I can use the tours in all of these places, am I doing that? You know, am I messaging that? I oversee Midwest and weather, right? I mean, you come into October through April and I do new developments and, you know, whenever I got the region, they said, oh, you're gonna come into the Midwest and you're not gonna get a lease for like 5 months. And I'm like, I'm doing lease ups, like we can't do this, right? So how do we message the virtual tours so they can still convert during those winter months even? So that was a great learning from me that I could apply to some of these markets, leveraging, you know, the experience from the past 2 years.
Wow, 2 years. I'm going to tap on top of that. I mean, obviously, we've all been through it, so we don't really need to talk about it. But I think just socially, we've changed. The difference here is the two on the side of me are marketing folks, and they've got tons of data. I'm an operator. And so we're just constantly pivoting. I've got a great marketing department which feeds us a lot of data, and we have to then make pivotable decisions. So 2 years ago, we were trying to implement these same technologies, trying to get through self-guided tours, trying to get through videos, trying to get better pictures, trying to look at, you know, VRs. I mean, where were we back then? But there wasn't anything driving. I think that was your point there. There really wasn't anything driving. And then the pandemic happened, and suddenly we're shutting down all of the offices, and we are forced to do these things. Now, unlike Greystar, who has to deal with their clients, we're owner-operators. So we own and operate all of our own stuff, and we were testing things out. We were doing okay. Our occupancy's in the 95, 96s. We're pressing rents above what CoStar is suggesting. So we're feeling pretty good about life. And then, of course, things shut down. We had to take all of those testing matrix and decide in a moment what we were going to do. And some of the stuff that we'll talk about today and you'll see out in the foyers out there weren't even available back then. So we're in a whole different world. Now, normally when we talk about a whole different world, we're talking about, 5, 10, 15 years ago, we did this. We're talking about 24 months ago. It's been a huge shift. So how do we shift that, and then how do we leverage that? And again, like Sarah was saying, we already had some of that stuff. So we'll just implement what we have and move forward. But I think what happened was there's a social shift. I'm the old guy in the room. I didn't like Zoom. I like to be in front of people. I like to shake your hand. I want to walk the tour path with you, et cetera. 24 months later, I'm much rather be on a Zoom call, to be real honest, than to be running around. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy going out to our properties. I enjoy meeting with people. But it's so much nicer. You're at an advisory board meeting in Muncie, Indiana on Tuesday, and on Tuesday afternoon, I'm on an advisory board meeting in Alaska. And that just didn't happen before. And so socially, not only do our first generation renters get used to using these technology, but some of the older generations or other generations also get the opportunity to migrate to that. Heck, we have Zoom calls with grandparents now, and everyone knows how to use this technology. Again, if the pandemic hadn't happened, we wouldn't be here today talking about this.
Well, that's really hard to follow from both of them, but I would say for Redwood Residential and Redwood Capital Group, the vast majority of our communities are fully stabilized. So sometimes with our leasing teams, it's like, well, why? We only have 4 units available. Why would we need to invest in this technology? And it's making sure, again, our teams have that buy-in, right? So they feel empowered with the whole slew of tools that we have. But now it gives them the power to show units that they couldn't have shown before if they were occupied. And they're able to go back and show those who are traveling from out of state. So it's so critical for us to look at the capabilities we have now, take the pandemic out of it. This is now a new tool that allows us to do our jobs even better at stabilized communities.
I'm going to open it up to the room. Anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, and let me share one other thing here. You guys are as smart or smarter than any of us up here. So please feel free to chime in and share. We come to these and we expect to learn as much from you guys as hopefully you might get introduced to concepts from us.
How hard was it to really create the optimal virtual tour or these technologies? I mean, because I know in the first year that this was going on, it's like, it should be 1 minute, 3 minutes, people were all...
Can I share on that one? I know you've got the today's solution,
Sure.
But if we want to kind of look through history, we went through our websites, we said, hey, we need to have better pictures. Okay, that's not going to do any good. And we need to have a 2-minute video. Okay, that doesn't do any good. And then the virtual tour started to come out. They were very clunky, and my user experience was, I didn't have patience for it. So we kind of allowed our site team, of course, we couldn't get photographers out to any of the sites either, to go around with FaceTiming, and that was really a pain in the tail. But now, we have a user experience. I think that the technology where we're talking about today is significantly different than it was then. I mean, we went on some of our websites and did some auditing the other day, and beautiful property downtown Chicago, 84 pictures. As a consumer, I'm bored by the time I get to where I want to see. Then we went to the video, and it's a 2.5-minute video. Of course, that's exactly where everybody says we're supposed to be. And it didn't show me anything I wanted to see as a consumer. I was being told where I needed to go.
Right.
Whereas with this new technology, you can go where you want to go. I know in the leasing experience, we always opened the door. We used to open the door and let them go wherever they wanted to go. If they went to the kitchen, that was the most important place. If they went to the garage, that was their most important place. So, and then you could sell from there. This new technology allows you to do that and gives you data as to where these folks are going, how long they're looking at this stuff. And now you can take kind of the anecdotal salesperson and the data-driven marketing, and they come together for the first time. We've often been opposite and opposed, and now it seems like that's the moment we're in. And it's a good place.
Are there more popular places that people want to see on these units, or is everybody kind of different? Is it just kind of a hodgepodge? Like, does everyone want to see the kitchen? Does everyone want to see?
I don't think, through the decades, I don't think any one leasing person or leasing prospect wants to see anything. You have to sell to that person. So to put a video together and try to lean it to the high preponderance of kitchen dwellers, you're going to miss the other side. Well, the new technology allows the consumer to pick where they want to go.
Okay.
You know, I'll add on to that. I actually was meeting with a signage vendor, and the way they differentiated themselves was from the competitor was, we take an organic approach where instead of just getting your scope and designing it and fabricating it, we go to your space, we look around, we see as a prospect, okay, do I feel like I should turn here? So should there be a sign here? It's like I'm there, I'm living it, I'm breathing it. And it made me think, okay, all of this happened so fast and we shifted gears so fast. How many of us have actually gone back and been that user? So I was actually with LCP 360 on a recent shoot, because I try to be at all of my shoots. And I recently just built a house, and I had to do that user experience. I'd gone from, renting for so long, and I finally was, at this, and I was living it, right? Because we were in the pandemic, everything had to be virtual. I couldn't see it in person. And between having that conversation with the signage vendor and living it for myself, I thought, I need to be there. I need to be there. I need to see it. I need to go back and audit. We always joke like the A word, audit. But I need to go back and really step back from a user perspective and say, does this actually make sense? Mm-hmm. And do I need to make some tweaks? Because one thing I found with virtual tours is that every time you have a dot, that's where it's taking you to the next place, right? So there were some certain virtual tours that I'd get in there and I'm like, but I want to turn here. And I don't want to do that. And I want to do, so from there I learned, okay, when I do my next shoot, I'm going to make sure that I have a dot here, I have a dot here, I have a dot here, whatever those are. So I have I can let the person do whatever they want, go wherever they need to be and explore it. But it took that, for me to kind of have that aha moment, which,
So how long do the tours last? If you said 2.5 minutes is ideal, what are you seeing for?
Well, I think you were referring to maybe videos.
The videos are about 2.5. Yeah, the virtual tours, it's up to the client.
Yeah.
They can be on and off in a minute. They can be on for 15 minutes. They can come back. They can have be-backs. They can do all that can be done in the virtual tour.
I think
So we're thinking about 3.5 minutes is the engagement time across about 4,500 properties.
Yeah, and that makes sense because, again, a video has to be short because you're directing it.
Yeah.
They get to interact, and as you interact, you're going to increase the amount of time there. The more time there, the more likely you're going to close the deal. You were going to say?
Oh, I was just saying, what we've done too is how do we empower our teams with the data to make that end user journey better, right? So what we've done rather than looking at lengths is, for example, we just did this audit in Atlanta last week. One of our communities, we found 70% of our virtual tours were of our 2 bedrooms. So I had that conversation with our site teams because sometimes marketing data, their eyes gloss over a little bit, they get inundated, and then we lose them. So I have this conversation with my team. Okay, tell me about not only our 2 bedrooms, what are our comps doing with 2 bedrooms? What do we offer that they don't? How do we make that 2-bedroom virtual tour the first one they see? And what do we do now? And how do we call back those prospects? So it's also using the data to make sure we're meeting what the market, each market's going to be different, but what the market really cares about. They may care a lot about the amenity space. They may care a lot about the dog run, but they like the 2-bedroom better than the 1-bedroom. How do we convert those up? Because we know there's a demand for that unit type.
When you said 3.5 minutes, were you talking about videos or the?
Interactive.
The interactive virtual tours. Yeah. So basically, we're shooting about, on average, about 50 scenes, which covers about 10 different areas. And it takes people about 3.5 minutes to walk through the entire tour. And obviously, they have different focuses. Some of them actually go straight to the bedrooms or the actual units themselves. Some actually do look through all the amenities, right? And what do you guys think? Do you guys, fine-tuning the process to use the virtual tours, that's really what interests me is, obviously we can put it on the website, we can put it on the ILSs, but what about the day-to-day, when someone actually calls in? Did you guys fine-tune a process for we're actually leasing these spaces using virtual tours.
Well, I
What do
think
you guys-
on all the tools that we're talking about, as Katie was saying, you've got to get your team involved. You've got to get them engaged.
Yeah.
We can give them self-guided tours, and if they don't know how to use it and they don't use it, they won't. If they can give them even photos, we can give them FaceTime, we can give them tools, and as we grow up and now we give them the virtual tours, we still have to be able to figure out how that consumer wants to engage. Do they want to do it all by themselves on the website at 2 o'clock in the morning and then rent it sight unseen? We love those guys, but they're not always going to be there. So then what happens with the person that calls in but doesn't feel comfortable in having a face-to-face? There's a great tool there to walk them through, and I can talk them through like I'm standing right next to you.
Yeah.
But you've got to have the protocols, and that's where, policies and procedures and trainings, et cetera. And hiring good people that want to get engaged,
That are technology driven.
that aren't afraid of being on a camera.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Well, not-
training, right? Training's the key.
Yeah, training is so key. And I'll say, Tom, earmuffs for a second. We use a whole slew of technology. We use a variety of vendors, a variety of partners. That's why we're all at this conference, right? So it's making sure that our teams are trained and know which tool to use at the right time, because each one plays a different part in that journey. Is the prospect from out of state? Okay, we really know these virtual tours are important. They're not coming to us next week or even in 2 weeks in some cases. So making sure our teams feel so empowered to understand the suite of technology readily available.
Yeah, we did that recently with competitors. We went through and had the teams do an analysis of competitor websites. They took their top 3 competitors and the team went through and said, okay, how do we compare? And they did their listings. They did, if they were served any display ads or paid social ads or whatever, the team actually went through and analyzed it. And that's like the only way, right, is that you can actually get them in there. And I love, Zoom and Teams calls and so forth, but I think there's something so special about being in person with your on-site teams, because, I was on site for 7-8 years, and you're multitasking like crazy. So unless someone can allow you the time and space to shut that door, not on a virtual meeting, but where you can truly sit there, dedicate the time and go through it, I feel like that's the only way I've been able to get over that hump of training.
That's actually the going out and auditing your competitors' market or website kind of takes us back to the old days when we used to tell them, and hopefully we still tell, our leasing team to go in and shop the competitors. And if you like what they do and you feel like you should buy from them, then mimic them.
Yep.
If you don't like them and they didn't stand up and they treated you poorly and you felt disrespected, then just learn from that and know that you're going to beat them on the next sales experience. Same thing's going to happen on that website audit. Is if ours is better, great, own it. If ours isn't, let the team know so we can fix it.
And stealing genius.
Stealing genius. I got to steal that.
I have a question. Have you guys noticed, I guess it's 2 questions. Have you guys noticed like a shift in renter desire or a strengthening desire to see the actual unit that they are looking to rent versus, virtually versus like a similar floor plan or something like that? Has there been an increase?
As an operator, I actually see the converse. Not the photos and not the video, because obviously that got us through a moment. But in a virtual tour, because they can be interactive and they can change things around and place furnishing and whatever, and the fact that people don't want to travel as much, I'm actually seeing more people being comfortable doing a full transaction on a virtual tour. And so I think the converse has happened. Up until the pandemic, everybody wanted to see the actual unit. Now I think we're seeing people accepting that new reality. That's my experiences.
Yeah.
I think my question was more both virtually, but making sure you're capturing the actual unit. Sometimes, I guess it would take, there's vendors out there that allow on-site teams to take, the virtual photos to create.
In our world, we have, I'm sorry, I'm hitting the mic. In our world, we haven't invested to that level. We're getting there, but rather than go through a 260 unit apartment complex or units and do them all as they become vacant, I think that technology, that reality is down the road and we're getting there, kind of that corporate intelligence that we're growing to. But I don't think we have enough mass to make that decision?
I'm actually working on that right now. I've partnered with Ingrain and, of course, LCP360. And I remember meeting with Brent back in, I don't know, a long time ago. And when Ingrain had come out for the interactive sitemap, and him saying, okay, well, you have a place where every single apartment, you can link all of the photos and the videos and the virtual tours. Yeah, the view, you nailed it, right? It's literally in every single unit, and you add that. And from a new development standpoint, you should be able to accomplish that, right? You shoot it in tranches as they're being delivered, period, the end. That we're finally getting there to where all of us are saying, okay, we've implemented it, how can we maximize, right? And so that's actually what I'm working on, a project I'm working on this year since I've shifted to only new development, is being able to get there, shoot every single unit. Yes, it's an investment, but what's the return? We'll see, but I feel like it will be extremely valuable.
Same, yeah. My second question is about the data. So are you guys seeing with virtual tours or virtual experiences like that are you seeing higher conversions without needing a physical tour? As you just that's kind of what you spoke to, I guess, before. Are you actually seeing that in the data, like higher conversions to lease or to application without needing a physical on-site tour? Or are you seeing them apply and then maybe come out before they move in? Or do you guys have that type of granular data?
You gonna take it?
Well, I would say on our properties, what we're seeing is that it's a part of their journey, right? Instead of a prospect going out and seeing 20 plus communities, they're narrowing it down. They're doing the virtual tour homework before. We would say we have a smaller percentage of people that only do virtual tours unless they're relocating, but it's pre-qualifying what they want to see, right? So that's why it's so critical, because if we don't have that, we may be off the list before they even consider stepping in front of our doors. So I think that it's knowing that multi-touch attribution, whether it's physical multi-touch or virtual multi-touch, digital, there are so many different steps in that journey for our renters today, and it's making sure we don't lose prospects because we've not invested in technology.
And it's options, we've learned options, right? So it's videos, it's virtual tours, it's self-guided tours, it's in-person tours, it's live video tours. You know, like these days we have to have all of the options to be normal, you know? So.
And then going back to training, your team member has to be able to dissect what that consumer wants at that moment and not just have a predetermined script. A person may not have wanted to do a live tour. They may wanted to have been invited in, but they were waiting for that invitation. And or maybe they didn't want the invitation, they got the invitation, they would have rather have done a self-guided tour. So understanding and training the team to try to vet out what it is the consumer touch points, important touch points are.
And I think every market's different, because I have Austin, and because when I look at my analytics, I can see that the majority of our prospects are coming locally. For the most part, the majority, versus the Midwest region, where it shuts down and people really do have to lean into the virtual options for that period. So like you said, it's part of the journey, right? I think some markets have a higher conversion rate using those tools just because of their whatever the demographic may be or the environment.
Awesome. That just reminded me of what you said, and I think that's great. And I'm seeing that too. I'm just curious, where does agent guided or those, I think you're speaking to live virtual tour experiences. Is that where we have an agent on the other end? Is that what we're speaking to there, live?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. Where does that fit in for you guys? Does that actually increase conversions, or is that like, should we be investing in agent guided virtual experiences, or do we think leaving it as that self-service option and then allowing them to come on site and do an in-person is good enough?
I almost feel like it's a qualification these days, and if they're using all of these tools, maybe they don't come in person because before they even get there, they realize I'd rather see this and this and this in person, So I feel like these tools are getting us more qualified traffic through the door because we've had that vetting period.
And again, it's going to pivot. We have a resident that says, hey, I've done your virtual tour, but I would like to see that particular unit. I'm like, hey, let me take you there. it's vacant right this minute, it's ready, and I'm going to take you there, and here's the view. So we're kind of a hybrid moment because we may not have had a virtual tour of that unit yet. We didn't do that full investment, but now after this one becomes vacant, we're going to be able to put it in the database. Next time it becomes vacant, we'll be able to use that corporate intelligence to be able to move it forward. But in the meantime, let me take you down there. Oh, let me see, what does a pool look like from the east side of the building? Whatever, it could be some weird moment, but you're still engaging the consumer, and that's the important part. The longer you can keep engaging the consumer, the more likely you're going to have a closing moment.
Yeah, and just to add, having that hybrid approach, right? In person, virtual guided by the leasing team, virtual guided by the user. Because of that, we have found that we've had 3 times more traffic because of our teams can support that traffic, right? Before, if we had that much more traffic, we'd be looking at wanting to have a bigger staff. Yeah. But now that hybrid approach allows us to be more efficient with our numbers and actually report higher, right? Then we got to close them, but giving those options allow us to get more people in the door physically or virtually.
I'm not sure the size of your portfolios, but I was wondering, does this apply to like the central leasing office model, which means, you know, I'm guessing you are familiar with that, you know, a property that has an interested renter, maybe they don't want the property on Main Street, but they want the property on Elm Street, and, well, maybe not Elm Street, but you know what I'm saying. So does this carry over to that approach, and have you dabbled your fingers in that a little bit?
I'm going to say yes. In fact, we've started in some very interesting asset classes where we're buying sections of buildings in HOA, and it's creating smaller building portfolios where we're having to kind of go a little old school using new technology. This is so empowering. When we've got 400 units, and down the street we've got another 400 units, and down the street we've got another 200 units, which is kind of the Chicago market. Then they're all fully staffed, but they all get this technology. I think it's a completely different application. When we're in new construction, it's a completely different application because we're building one in O'Fallon and we're building one in Santa Barbara. But when we've got a smaller portfolio size buildings and sharing staffing, sharing teams, it's very empowering. Kind of goes back to, in the other application is in the commercial world as well. Yeah. The commercial guys save so much money not having to drive around and move around and fly around, and they get to see the space.
Yeah.
I worked on site and we had the touch tour on a large screen, and I worked for Post Properties quite some time ago, and we used, we had Ingrain and so forth, and we had the central leasing office approach as well. And you're right, that was key, because instead of having to drive or so forth, being able to showcase this and this from one space, even pre-COVID, being able to say, okay, let's look at all of these places to kind of say, you want a 1 bedroom, and I'm checking 13 properties right now, right? Mm-hmm. What's your style, so forth.
So do you combine the video, the LCP product with the Ingrain product? Do they work with each other, or do they integrate with each other, or they just sort of complement each other?
They do. We are partnered, and essentially we capture all the spaces, and then we embed them into the available units on the site plans. So as units come up, you see them on the site plan, you know exactly where they are located within the building, and then you can take a virtual tour.
And the site plan is the product from Ingrain?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And I would say for our community, like to talk about Atlanta again, because we actually just did the same. We have a team that supports 2 communities. We found not only for a prospect that's coming in, which is going to be the right fit, having those slew of technologies at your fingertips, we found when we have renters that aren't going to renew, we have the capability to show them another property if we know they're staying in the greater Atlanta area, but maybe not at that exact community. We're able to then transfer them over if they're interested to our other community, our neighborhood community. And that's why it's also important for our CRM software to easily transfer over those prospects and residents. Yeah. So we find
How easy is it?
Oh, it really is seamless. It is seamless. So it's great that all of these technologies speak to each other. It's also great. Redwood, we've transacted with Trinity and Greystar, and because all of these teams are investing in that technology, it makes those transitions as a team seamless. It's really almost like a plug and play tool to convert post to renter, also to convert our teams as they're onboarded.
Not to get too product specific, but I mean, what I hear is like Knock and Funnel are sort of the CRM players. Are there more different ones than that? Are you seeing more property platforms adapting that capability?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say we fully launched Knock at all of our communities last month, and it's been a tremendous technology investment for us.
I'm going to keep, oh, go ahead.
I'm wondering how, like, what percentage, how many people have adopted these types of tours, kind of all of them across the country?
Owners or
Operators in any form. I'm just kind of wondering what is the overall adoption? And the bigger piece is, like, where do you see it going in the future now that, you know, the thing is passed and it will change probably? How are you preparing to adapt for what comes next? And I just wondered.
As an owner operator, I think that the top echelons, Greystars of the world, Redwood of the world, have adopted these things. As a buyer, we're obviously looking for low-hanging fruit. And for those properties in neighborhoods that haven't adopted some form of innovation, they are a great opportunity for purchases. We can see very large lifts day one because one, we can go in, we used to go in and do photos and do videos after we completed our renovation, which is where we got our heavy lift, right, for our NOIs. But now we're able to go in and construct a virtual tour as if we had been there, you know, with some disclaimers, obviously, because we are still making design element changes. But we don't have to wait. We don't have to show a mood board any longer. Just trying to show and trying to teach somebody how to use a mood board in a leasing moment is tough enough. Now we can actually show them what the clubhouse is going to look like, show them what the unit finishes are going to look like before we even get there. So we can have huge uptick if we find a property that is, of course, we want off market if we can. But in today's market, you know, we're 4 caps, sub 4 caps in some cases. It's crazy stuff. So you look for those kind of investments are as much of an important investment as the actual investment of putting that $10,000, $15,000 worth of rehab into that unit.
Can you describe the size of your portfolios at your companies? Like how many? And are you regional, national?
Yes, so I was regional and I had about 43 properties. And then that I oversaw, we have about 90 in the Austin market for Greystar. I shifted to a national role to focus solely on new development. And I've got about 16, 18 now, but they're all new construction across the nation. So obviously a lot more goes into those than just your typical stabilized.
So you have about 90?
No, from the national Greystar itself, I oversaw about 40-ish.
Oh, you personally?
Personally.
Greystar's about 800,000 or plus, right?
Oh, we have, yeah.
It's huge.
Okay.
It's huge, yeah. We've got about 37,000 units, 216 properties in 37 different states.
For Redwood Residential, we currently manage 20 communities. And for Redwood Capital Group, we own and invest in 25.
So moving on here, we do have some virtual tour stats. I'm not going to read through this. I'm just going to keep going to the next question here. So what methods do you recommend to maximize the virtual tour experience? I'm going to give this one to Katie.
Yeah. So I would say it's really, again, it comes down to our teams, right? We want to empower the teams on how to use that virtual tour technology, right? Knowing if it is a self-guided or it is sending links, because we do integrate, we send our virtual tour links through our CRM communication. So making sure they understand how our technology speaks together so we can be unique to that renter's journey, right? It's not going to be the same on what you send. I think it's also important we talk about social media, right? How do we put our virtual tours on social media, but also not make our teams feel intimidated? They too can take their phones and film a unit. We do Tour Tuesday, and they can utilize that technology too, right? Virtual tour doesn't have to be limited to just the partner. It's okay, how do we put that throughout the journey and put that in our social media campaigns just as much as our leads and prospects?
I'll add on. For me, this is, where I'm at in the journey is how can I maximize these dashboards, right? How can I maximize these tools from my position? So with the virtual tours, of course, you have the website. We've added a dedicated virtual tours page. We've also added a Tour Now page that has all of the options. So if you wanted to schedule for the live video, for the virtual tours, for the self-guided, for the in-person, there's a dedicated page. We also use that, with a pop-down banner or so forth where you can change the call to action to take you to those. We do that in our display campaigns, our social media campaigns, so we can target those options, the flexible options, and then drive them straight to those pages, which obviously we can track. We also add the virtual tours to our individual floor plan pages on the website. So when you get to that one, you can view, the videos, so forth there. And then of course to the interactive site maps. We also create QR codes through the Panaskin dashboard where I've done QR codes on one-sided coasters and dropped them off to area, bars and restaurants and so forth. So while they're sitting there, they can tour while they're having a drink, We've done clings, window clings. We've done desk clings with the QR code. So while people are waiting, or if maybe we have a small staff and the door is closed, they can still scan and tour right there. We've added them to our A-frames, these QR codes. So those have been really helpful for the sidewalk boards, especially if you're in a live-work area. And then we also have done renovations where we put the QR codes on there and partnered to do the rendered virtual tours. So our prospects and our residents can see that we're clearly under construction or renovation, but they can see what that end product will be, right? So it's, they're like, okay, I can hang in there a little bit longer. And then of course for events and outreach, being able to have that there with your promotional signage. We add the virtual tours, of course, they're on our Google listings. We push those in our GMB post. I mentioned the paid ads that we have for social display and of course messaging the virtual tour options. Email marketing. We just had a new construction product that we won't start touring for several months, but we were able to get in with LCP 360, shoot, so forth. And then we sent a prospect e-blast out with this. It's like your sneak peek, you can finally see product and so forth because we were able to get temp power, do a fast track unit, get it filmed in 2 hours and got it out. And we generated, I think, 28 leases from that email because people were on a wait list and they just needed to see something. So that was incredible. And then last thing that I love about LCP 360 is that they integrate to our ILSs so that I don't have to manually put them there. So there's so many places that we can put these and use these that, when people question the price, I'm like, well, hold on, let's look at, where we can maximize this.
Appreciate that. Well, what about as far as the dashboards? Because you mentioned multiple dashboards. The person on site really is just sitting on the CRM, right? Or are they? I know a lot of people do not log into our dashboard.
Well, I think you're right about most other dashboards too.
Yeah.
I think the majority of the time they're in the CRM. And that's why I always preach training, because, it's like you have to motivate and be there in person to kind of like sell them on it, right?
Sure.
So.
But most of the stuff is consolidated, right? Within the dashboard.
It's getting there.
Okay.
It's getting there.
I will say with our CRM, though, it is great that we have all of our LCP 360 tour links ready to go as an option to add on into a conversation, right? Our renters talk to us either phone call, email, or even texting, and our teams have the ease of ability to just send a link right in that software without logging out or going to an LCP dashboard or a LCP one sheet. They can do that right in one dashboard to use the technology.
Yeah. I think
Then we go back to just the training and making sure that people are willing to get into whether your systems require them to go to multiple dashboards, or if your system is better and you can go to one. Ideally, the whole purpose of this is to take, the whole purpose of this is lease apartments. But we also want to take, time off of the desk of our teammates that are on the
Yeah.
sites and be able to redeploy that time in other fashions, whether it be more showings or better customer service moments or something like that. But we're in a great time right now. I mean, I've been doing this for 36 years, and this is a great market right now. Most of I imagine most of everybody in this room, unless they've got a troubled asset they've got to work on, somewhere in the 94, 96%, they're pushing rents as much as legally possible. Some states are still hampering that. Things are in a good spot. So everything we're talking about now is how do you position yourself for when there is a turn?
Yep.
Again, I've been through this enough, and some of us have been through this enough that you know that there will be a cycle. So plan ahead for that using some of this technology. One of the things I really enjoyed out of your presentation there was the fact that we're bringing up QR codes again. We started that 10 years ago. I literally had my marketing department about 5 years ago saying QR codes are dead.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, how can you get this? This is the easiest thing in the world. But okay, I'm the guy that the naysayer. Okay, so be it. And now everybody knows how to use QR codes. We were at a baseball game the other day, and they put a QR code in. We watched. Everybody's phone. There was no explanation why I was even up there. Everybody's phone went and did this. They knew exactly what to do.
Yeah.
So it's probably become one of the more powerful ways to get a subliminal message across.
Yeah, they made a huge comeback. I mean, we see the usage skyrocketing, and I think it was COVID, and obviously restaurants really, converting their menus, and it went from there. So
Commercial or Super Bowl.
Yeah, there was a commercial Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Nothing, but the
Yeah.
QR code.
Yeah. I had a billboard that was just a QR code, and I'm like, no, it was like standstill traffic zone, but I thought, oh, okay, that's where we're at.
They have a lot of them in Chicago on buildings now, like on buildings, just QR codes, and it's working. And everybody gets it, right? It's not just art, it's every single industry. I was at a wedding on Saturday, and it's like you scan the QR code and then we can see all the pictures. Next week, like what? And now it's like whether we're prompting to virtual tours or looking at another room or to get reviews. It's huge for us to hand out the QR codes for reviews. So it's something that's impacting every single industry. Yeah.
Are you guys doing virtual tour experiences of amenities too?
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where we started, is that was our baseline, was the amenities and looking at the unit mix and saying, okay, what do we have the majority of, and let's get those floor plan types. And now I think when COVID hit, it was like, I need every single floor plan type. And now we're at the point where we're like, I need every single apartment,
How did you most effectively get virtual tours of every one of your apartments? Like for myself, we have 250 properties, and they're aged 100 years to brand new. So when you're looking at some of our properties, I would say majority of our portfolio is maybe like built in the 90s or early 2000s. So it's not out of the box. Like every unit type could look a little bit different. So if I'm selling one virtual tour unit type and someone leases off of that, what they're getting may not look like that. So how did you most effectively do that? We're working on that, and it's not going great.
That is a great example of that would be like a loft. Lofts are just cookie cutters. We did a tour. We had a bunch of interns. We had 52 interns last year. We were doing some tours of some lofts, and the interns were asking that same question. How do you do that? Or why do they build them this way? It's just a puzzle. You've got a building. You have to make it in. So I think it goes back to what you were just talking about. You start the process. Unless you've got the money to invest in the entire building, which is wonderful in new construction because you can capitalize it into the construction loan. But if you're just taking on it, then I would do the amenities first, do as common as you can, disclose it out that this is not the actual, use it as much as you can, and then your corporate intelligence will grow as vacancies happen, and you'll then have unit by unit by unit by unit. I mean, we've got Boston Lofts, it's got 64 units and it's got 27 unit types. Is what it is. We're not going to go do 64 units out of the box, but we'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, our biggest struggle is we're in a very strong market, so we're leasing these apartments very quickly. So making that time to get in to take the photos to create that virtual tour, we're just having people wanting to move in so quickly that we're struggling at
And
at a
I
cheap
caution
amount.
on that because you just made a comment and your ownership might actually key up on this as a negative. You're saying that the units are leasing up very quickly. We're in a great market.
Yeah.
They lease up quickly. I still strongly believe that if you're going to invest in this technology, first of all, you should. But if you're going to, go ahead and get it while you can, because there's going to be a day where we're going to be back in the 88% trend line and everyone's going to want data. And then there's not going to be enough photographers around to get it. And you will be ahead of the curve if you get it while you can now. So this is one of those think ahead, stay ahead moments.
And I think Sarah made a really great point earlier, all the different places in which we put our virtual tours and we use our virtual tours. But in order to have a library of content, right? So what we'll do when we come in and do value add, we'll have our virtual tours of our current units. And then it's key to have, I have a great open line of communication with Tom at LCP 360. I'm like, okay, we renoed these 3 units. How quickly can we get this person in? So we know, it's the same as a model unit, right? Your model unit isn't going to be reflective of every single unit in your building with various unit types. It's making sure you have that open line of communication with the renter and your vendor partners, so that way you have the library to complete that journey. And like you said, preface, okay, this may not be exactly what it's like, but you have another resource once you're able to get that content to show them like, hey, this is what it looks like now, but if you lease and move in 2 months, like this is what the new product will be if you're trying to keep them on the line for however long of a journey.
And realistically, you're probably going to have to budget in advance for it. I sit down, I write every single marketing budget for all of my properties, and because I know my clients, right? I know who's going to say no, and who I can probably get. So I feel like being able to strategically budget for it in advance and go ahead and have it on the books, and if I need to make adjustments otherwise, in other places to make it happen, because by the time that budget actually kicks into effect, you could be in a totally different position. And you're absolutely right. There's been, we've made our own little spreadsheets and trackers. Okay, they're moving out on this date. We have this window, and we'll be in constant communication with LCP. Like, okay, actually, we've got this window or whatever it is, right? But realistically, budgeting, I start budgets in May, and that's for next year, So go ahead and put them in there because things can change, right?
Yeah, I would say the biggest struggle is that from move out to getting the apartment then in make-ready condition and then getting the photographs needed. And that's the part that gets very challenging, is working through that timeline.
But they're flexible. That's the best part about it, is they're absolutely flexible, and it happens all the time. So.
But with that said, units come up all the time, especially on larger properties. And really, we really feel that doing it yourself, the person on site can capture that content at this point. And there are different solutions out there.
Yeah, that's how we're trying to achieve it. So I'll look into 360, but we're trying to do it internally.
Nice. Yeah, and that sort of feeds into my next question too, is how are you guys empowering your teams to create and share new content beyond what you guys do with us? Dave, you want to take this one?
Well, I think we've kind of hit this one. One, we're training them.
Yeah.
The other is just try to encourage them. A lot of our team members are in the younger group that just need validation on a regular basis. They need permission, unfortunately, to do things that we would think should be part of their daily life anyway. So I just think that this just comes down to the culture of the company. If you're going to be investing in this, you probably should be investing in your team members and giving them permission to fail. In order to be successful, you got to stub your toe a couple of times, and then have somebody in your marketing department making sure that they're not putting up fuzzy videos or videos with their finger in front of it, or all those little things that we all think is funny, but is also very annoying, and it doesn't protect your brand.
I think we talk about how to embody our culture with our training all day long, and what we've found to be most successful, whether it's virtual tours or another piece of technology, is we like to find our all-star team members in each region that can be a peer to be like, hey, this worked really well at Deer Park. Wilder may need a little bit of help, but Carly, why don't you go talk to Emily and show what's working? We can train all day long from our training team, from corporate, from marketing, and show data, but that there's nothing quite like that peer empowerment and celebrating those that are successful, right? It's like, hey, you're doing amazing. Can you help another person? And then now both properties are succeeding.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, we've done something similar. It's more of a let's deem it marketing strategist on site, right? And that's where I came from. I was fortunate that I had a regional property manager that realized my love for marketing. You know, I'd be there until 9 p.m. doing all the marketing stuff on top of, you know, managerial stuff because the passion was there. And I feel like that exists. And if we can't promote people as quickly as they want to be promoted, if we can't pay them as much as we want to pay them, if at least I could acknowledge their passion for something and work together with them to grow it and recognize them along the way. And if I can do contests where I can incentivize them monetarily that way, that's the least I can do, right? And then you hone in on those, you know, I've identified these people that clearly stand out, and we've taken some of these marketing benchmarks across the board that we've tried to implement, and it's just a lot, right? But we've given those unique individuals at each property, here's the benchmarks, here's, you know, these things, this is your resume builder, this is your opportunity for growth. Whenever another position comes up, you can put this on your resume and say, hey, I want to move up because of this, this, and this, right? Because I think we forget about that. Like, recognition goes so far, you know, and I think being able to kind of tap in and find those strategists or whatever they are that their passion lies in, identify, nurture it, and allow them growth, and that way at least we're accomplishing something.
Yes.
So if you have a property and you want to use this technology, this touring technology, how long does it take for the team to come and shoot your property? And is it like one shoot, and then how long does it take for them to turn it around for you? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so we can have a photographer out there within a week, and we turn it out typically within 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the size of the project.
So is it like an all-day shooting project, or a couple hours, or depends?
Like 5 hours. 5 hours, and we'll cover all the amenities as well as, you know, any type of unit itself. But when it comes to the self-shot option, the nice thing about capturing virtual tours is it's pretty simple. It's not like, you know, you're never gonna be able to replace a professional photographer, right? But with this stuff, it's you have a 360 camera. It's on a stand, and you're just walking around and picking the vantage points that you want, and it captures everything. And the nice thing is that that's consistent. So if you are trying to digitize your portfolio, it's going to be consistent across the board. Versus, let's say, doing a video, when you're walking around, everyone's going to film a video a different way, focus on different things. So it's a much more, I want to say, objective way of looking at these apartments, because you're capturing everything, and it's consistent. And so we're actually running a pilot right now with Greystar, and like what you guys mentioned, it's training. It's all about training and making sure that people understand how this stuff works. But it is, once you get the hang of it, it is fairly simple, and you can capture an entire unit, I want to say, in 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, I did it with them. I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. Like, if I can do this, anyone can do it, kind of thing, you know? And so I went with my teams on one of the pilots, and, you know, I was like, no, I want to get it, because I want to get in this nitty gritty. And I was shocked, and like that, I've become an advocate, you know, because like I saw it and I went to the next person. I'm like, you've got to try this product, you know, it's incredible. And so I feel like that's where it also snowballs.
So I think, just to interject, we're talking about two different things. So we have the virtual tours, which we professionally shoot, and we go to the community, it takes 5 hours. And what they're talking about now is a supplemental. On top of that, you can supplement that with using a tour builder product that we're piloting right now, and then your team can go ahead and capture units as they turn, so that you can archive your entire community. So it's a supplement.
Yeah, what you're saying, you can have your team shoot every unit if you
As
want.
it comes available.
Yeah, you
And
get a
virtual
kit.
stage it.
Yep, you get a kit. And so that's been amazing for us, because we go in there, you have a little pocket of that, you know, 2 hours, right? When it's clean and made ready, and you're probably going to go walk it and verify and put a move-in gift or whatever. You bring that with you, you shoot it, boom, 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 you pack it back in the kit, and you're done, you know?
And that's what we're doing. So we've invested in the camera and the product to make the 360 tours, or the virtual tours. But what we're trying to execute better is that oftentimes these apartments are leased and someone's moving in. So I have like a 24-hour period turnaround between that new lease start date. So getting it captured captured, and then the time of creating the tour.
Okay.
Tour itself, that's where, I mean, we're doing it, and we're actually doing it, and we're making a lot of great progress at our properties so that we have that in our marketing, and we're sharing it in our communications. But trying to get every unit itself, because my units are so different, that's where I'm just trying to do it better.
Yeah.
More efficient.
What about as far as pushing the content out there to all the ILSs or on your website? How does that process look like?
What was that? I'm sorry.
How does the process of actually taking the content and then leveraging it on your website or on ILS, is it all manual? Do you guys do that internally as well, or?
Yep.
Okay. Because that's what we find is like the hard part, right? Is once you capture it, how are you going to leverage it? How are you going to use it? How are you going to get it up there?
And how
right?
how do you get your team to use it? It's got to be
Yeah.
easy for your team to find it and use it.
Yeah.
Whether it be teed up in your CRM or permanently linked or somehow.
Yeah. I mean, and we're working on APIs, and that's really what our focus is now, is just partnering with these CRMs, with the PMS systems, with the ILSs, to make it a seamless experience. Once you capture it, just gets shot out there. So.
Everyone loves integration.
I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
So, love to hear it's all about the team and training, because that's exactly where if there's no WIFM, they don't know how to use it, they can't humanize it and make it work in concert. I'm curious on if you're seeing that within your recruiting. So I know we're all across the nation. I'm from Denver, but we're all across the nation looking for new people. Is that an expectation of the people you're recruiting, that you do have a high level of technology and you have virtual tours? Is that something you guys are hearing, or?
I would say, because we're growing like crazy, right?
Yeah.
We're adding about a community a month right now at this rate. And what we're hearing, not only from site level recruitment efforts, but also regional recruitment, is not that we have the technology per se, but that they have a voice in the technology, right? They can give their transparent feedback on how we all are better as a team, right? We just hired a new regional manager, and it's great whenever we're piloting technology for her to say, okay, I used that at my last company. Now I can speak to it and help empower. Whenever we also roll out new technology, we do almost like a focus group of our internal team members, from a site level, entry level employee to a regional manager, to ensure that they have a say in what technology we're using and we can hear that. I wouldn't say it's exactly like, oh, if you don't have this technology, I'm not gonna go join your group, but rather that they are not just forced to use one thing and can't give their open, or feel empowered to give their open feedback on it, right? And we'll make a change based on that. We recently switched tools for a different type of technology because, hey, listen, it worked from a corporate box, but it did not work from a site level. And we said, we hear you. We'll own our mistakes. We all have to make mistakes to succeed. And them feeling and seeing that, okay, we made that switch because they gave that feedback, I think that's what matters more than what we use per se.
Last one here. What new technologies are you exploring to give renters more touring options? Who wants this one to kick it off?
I can take it.
Sarah?
So we're kind of playing around with the secret sauce, you know, because I feel like the past 2 years has brought a lot of piloting, right, of just different things. And so now it's kind of figuring out based on data, okay, what worked best based on, you know, the on-site feedback, what do we love and actually use, and then refining that secret sauce. So personally, part of my secret sauce, and it's constantly changing, but I think, you know, this is kind of where I'm at right now. We utilize both Highly and Conversion Logics. For Highly, I love, because they have many different components, and if you're not familiar, check it out. But they especially have a high tours. Same thing with Conversion Logics. They have a schedule genie so that you can actually make it easier to schedule. And with us, it allows you to schedule for any option. It also has, you know, call to actions to where you can do the videos, you can do the virtual tours. So it's all right there. It's integrated with your property management software, and it goes into the lead manager and so forth. So it's very seamless. So I love Highly. Same thing with Conversion Logics and their Conversion Cloud. It's the Conversion Cloud, TCC. RealLink is another thing that we've fully embraced with the live video tours, the pre-recorded tours. We've started creating prospect and move-in playlists to where you can, QR code and you'll have a prospect playlist. So when someone lands there or you're messaging it, it has the model tour, it has the amenities tour, then it has, meet the team, and you literally get to meet every single team and do an introduction of who they are. Here's the neighborhood that you're living in, and they're driving around and they're introducing you. Here's where you're gonna have groceries, this and this and this. So having these prospect playlists, and then same thing with the move-in playlist. I think this all started from COVID as well, when it became, you couldn't sit down and go through a lease with someone in person and give them their keys in person like we used to do. And how do you send them a video link that tells them exactly where to pick up their keys, where to park their moving truck, what are these FAQs, and then you extend that to even like maintenance, maintenance hacks, and all of those. So building out that from a whole different level with the playlist, the Ingrained interactive sitemap, or the interactive sitemap. I like Ingrained because of the integration and what that extends. And then self-guided tours. If you don't have self-guided tours, get a DIY one in place. That's just like, we even made some in Canva, that just gets you something, right? And then adding the Tour Now page that messages all 4 tour types: in-person, live video, pre-recorded video, playlists, virtual tours, self-guided. That way, when you do put those in your paid campaigns, you can drive traffic to those pages, call to action, so forth.
Sarah brings up a really great point. These video tours and video technology that we have, it's not just for our prospective residents, it's for our current residents, right? And that's what we're putting the big emphasis on now this year is, okay, how do we build that library of content to help our renters? Whether it's a value add reno that we're doing in the clubhouse, or it's teaching them maintenance tricks, or if something needs to be turned on in a different way, right? It's having that library of resources to ensure that we're also continuing to meet the demand of our renters, so they don't want to leave us, right? At the end of the day, that they truly feel that they were as empowered when they were renting as they are as an actual resident of ours. So that's been a big thing for us. We just completely converted our CRM software. And with that, I'm in a very unique position where I oversee marketing both for our ownership and our management groups, right? So we're putting a lot of emphasis on conversations with owners on, hey, these are the new cool tricks. This is what's happening right now. These are the vendors we're recommending. So they constantly are in the know of like, this is the technology that's coming. So when we're ready to say, here's the cost, they understand it, right? Because it's like, whoa, what is that dollar sign? Absolutely not. We don't need that. But they've been a part of that conversation from day one. So I think that's not only what are we implementing, but how are we continuing to have that conversation with our owners? So we had a conversation last week. I had a lunch and learn pre-AIM, and I'll have one after. I'm like, okay, what are you going to look at? And now they're like, okay, well, what are XYZ property management groups going? Because we want to be like them, right? We're growing. So we're also tracking what all the big dogs are doing, so that way we can be competitive as well.
I think we're in a little different, I'm an operator. We allowed our marketing team to go and explore a lot of new technology over the last month or so, or last year or so. The first year of the pandemic, we shut down all new initiatives. So the second year, we started bringing up new initiatives again and allowed them to go and explore and do test products. We now have over 85, someone told me once it was 125, but over 85 supporting technologies that we've been testing. So we're in the opposite mode. We're now in the, where's the duplication of efforts? Where can we pare it down? Is our property management software the appropriate basis and foundation for all of these things? So we're going back and doing a reverse engineering on that. We've had some great technology developed over the last couple of years that unfortunately is solving for a problem that we don't have. But we bought into it because we wanted to play with it, test it, see if there was any unintentional consequences to positive. We have, in many cases, we saw some. In some cases, we didn't. Some were very socially acceptable, pressing the ESG buttons, but it resulted in nothing. And those were very unfortunate because it had a lot of opportunities. And I think throughout all of this supporting technology, that's the case. So we're kind of the opposite. We're paring it down and seeing what we can do and where the collateral damages might be. But all of the ones you're talking about and that you're talking about are all in those lists as well.
I think that does it for us today. Any other questions? Anyone?
you all actually just hit 2 points pretty near and dear to my heart, resident retention and ESG. Thank you. So I'm Wes Jules. I'm with The Round. We're a zero waste refill and delivery service of everyday household items in about 4 markets. The way we really measure our performance is through resident retention and package reduction. And we also like to say that we reduce foot traffic since it's a scheduled weekly refill and delivery service. And so I'd like to understand those historical ESG initiatives you've run. Why didn't they work? Or what were the issues there? So just from my perspective.
I think that's a long conversation, a little off topic. More than happy to chat with you. I'm a big proponent of the ESG initiatives. We've been doing the green initiatives in our world for probably 12 years, way before it became an investor requirement. So I'm happy to chat with you afterwards.
Anybody else? No takers?
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for participating. This has been a good interaction.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.